Don't get next to me, Deidre. Okay. Hi, guys. It's Monday.
Hey there. Happy Monday.
How do we do this?
Happy day 30 of quarantine or something like that.
Yes. So we are on day 847 quarantined. It's crazy. But anyways, so welcome to United Medical Fitness. I'm Jen, fitness director.
I'm Deidre McGannon. I am a registered dietitian here.
She is a food wizard, basically. So we're coming on here today, and we wanted to do a question and answer about how to stay healthy on a budget. Because here's the thing. 22 million Americans have lost their jobs in this coronavirus epidemic, which is really, that's a whole nother, conversation in itself. However, we need to stay healthy. So how do we stay healthy and also do it while on a budget? Because that's very real for many of us. We are on a budget. So how do we do that? So that's why we decided to do a Q&A with Deidre, the food wizard, so we can help you accomplish those things so you can do it in a budget-friendly way. So, Deidre.
Yeah.
What do you got?
That's a new question.
Okay, questions. Does anyone have any questions? Hi, Tara. Tara, do you have any questions about how to stay healthy on a budget? Hi, Hayden. Nice of you to join us.
So I have a lot of information that I'd like to share with you. I'm just not quite sure what direction to go, but I want to provide some resources for you guys because we're all kind of in the same boat right now. Most of us are eating 98% of our meals at home, and for a lot of people this is something very new and very overwhelming. And while no one likes this quarantine, I would say that it is an opportunity for us to get more familiar with our kitchens, more familiar with what we're putting in our body, and it does seem like people really want to give their bodies good nutrition right now. We want our immune systems to be optimal, and of course, proper nutrition has a lot to do with that. So that being said, I do have some resources I want to share with you. As Jen mentioned, we want to be budget friendly. We want to talk about how we can do this and make it affordable and not waste what we're purchasing. So I want to just share a website with you. There's a website, there's a woman, her name is Leanne Brown, Leanne Brown, and she has written a book, and she has an ebook that she's providing for free. I think it's like 80 or 90 pages, so you can just download that, and it does come in Spanish as well as English. And her whole thing is eating for less than $4 a day.
Wow.
Her recipes are great, they're sound, they're nutritious. So that would be a really great resource just to give you guys some ideas on how to cook on a budget. The other options that I wanted to share is just even some stores that are here locally that you might want to look into. Grocery Outlet is a really great store that has a lot of really good quality products at a great price. You can get a lot of the items that you find at Sprouts at Grocery Outlet for 30 or 40% less. And by the way, Sprouts is a great place to shop. It can be expensive, but take advantage of their double ad Wednesdays. Every Wednesday you can use your coupons and double it, so that's a great way to get good quality food at a good price.
So let's talk about, let's break it down.
Yeah.
So, for example, someone's making dinner.
Mm-hmm.
So what are the things that they need to have on their plate? Like what type of nutrients would they need to have on that plate to make it healthy and budget friendly?
Okay, great question. So we want to always include something that I talk about a lot with my patients is we always want to include protein, a healthy protein, healthy fat, and smart carbs. So it's called PFC, protein, fat, and carbohydrates. Those three things we want to include at every meal to keep our blood sugar balanced, to keep us feeling satiated, and really provide a lot of great nutrition. So speaking of, let's just say protein, right? We know what protein is. Protein typically we think of, a piece of meat, which is a great source of protein. But that's something that, as when you're navigating this somewhat of a food shortage, depending on where you're at and where you're shopping and everything else, having meat on hand all the time can be a bit of a challenge. So thinking kind of bigger picture, where can we get our protein other than just from meat? And meat can be expensive, by the way. So there's other good sources of protein. For example, beans are an awesome source of protein.
And they're cheap.
Cheap. satisfying and loaded with fiber, slow burning carb. Beans are great. Eggs can be a really complete source of protein at a very cost-effective price. You can get a dozen eggs in a store like Aldi for like 99 cents. So, stocking up on eggs, nuts are a good source of protein as well. And just even looking at protein, if you get the larger like cuts of meat that are cheaper, the roasts, those can be delicious. You cook them low and slow, like in a crock pot over a long period of time with some kind of an acid, kind of breaks down the fibers. Really, really good way to get good quality protein in your diet.
What is a good protein to have that is multifunctional, not multifunctional, but also somewhat cheap? What type of meats would you recommend that would last a long time, can be used for lots of different things, and
so like even like the roast, like a chuck roast or something like that coming from the red meat family, or even buying like whole chickens. If you buy a whole chicken, it's much cheaper than buying its parts. So you could say roast a couple of chickens on Sunday afternoon, and then after you roast those, shred down the chicken, and then you can have multiple meals throughout the week using that chicken. Chicken tacos, chicken pasta, fajitas, salad, chicken with salad in it. Then taking those bones, you don't throw them away. Take those bones and stick them in the freezer for later, or if you want, putting them in the crock pot and making a bone broth, which is super nutritious. And we are GI here, we are gastrointestinal, so bone broth is super nourishing for our guts. So using that, and speaking of waste, we don't want to waste any part of that chicken. But also, when it comes to fruits and vegetables, if you go ahead and throw those fruits and vegetables that maybe are turning bad, say you overbought, throw those into the freezer. You can take those vegetables now and put them in the crock pot with the bones and just really give yourself a nutritious broth. And even if you don't, if you're a vegetarian, I do that with vegetables alone sometimes, where my vegetables are starting to turn bad, I'll stick them in the freezer, and when I have enough, I'll make a broth out of it. Add some turmeric and water, little herbs, and the vegetables, and then just let it simmer, and then you strain it, and you have a beautiful broth.
Okay, perfect. So protein, chicken, buy a whole chicken, and then don't waste any of the parts, right? So cook the chicken, eat the meat, use the bones for a broth later so that you can use it for something else. Perfect. What about any other proteins that you think would be, like you said, crock pot, so maybe buying a huge roast?
Yes.
And then if you don't use it, freeze it for later?
Yeah, or like I said, you can use that. I mean, something that I do at my house is by the end of the week, it's like I usually shop on the weekend, so by the end of the week, things are looking a little picked over, so I'll take whatever I have left in my refrigerator and make some kind of a pasta with it. I'll put pasta with leftover meat, whatever vegetables I have, use some good olive oil and some herbs, and kind of throw that together. So what was your question?
That was it. So other thing, okay, so protein. There's lots of ways you can get protein. That can be through eggs, can be through beans, which is very inexpensive. You can get it through nuts of some sort, also can be inexpensive. And then the chicken, obviously you can do that with ground turkey. You just buy mass amounts of ground turkey, cook it, freeze some of it for later. You can do that. Yeah. Or buy big roasts that are cheaper sometimes to buy a bigger roast than it is to individually buy, say steaks or some other type of meats.
Yes.
So there's that as well. Hi, Marion. Okay, so that's protein. Now let's talk about vegetables. So I know there's this big misconception out there that eating healthy is expensive. Whereas, eating processed food is sometimes way more expensive than eating healthy. So let's talk about vegetables. Buying vegetables in bulk, good idea or bad idea?
I think it's a great idea. You don't have to buy fresh vegetables. Frozen vegetables are a really great way to go. Frozen fruits and frozen vegetables are probably half the price of fresh, and they can be as nutritionally dense as fresh vegetables as well. Especially, ideally we'd love to shop at the farmer's market, but that's not always ideal. It's not everyone can get there. So if you think about it, when they do frozen vegetables, they pick them off the fields right away. They blanch them, and they put them into the freezer pretty quickly, and so there's very little downtime. The average length of time or mileage that most produce, say you go to Albertsons and you want to get your produce, typically it has been transported on average 1,500 miles in the back of a truck. So it's losing nutrition as it's going. So that's where frozen can be awesome, because again, it's picked from the fields and taken care of immediately.
So buying things in bulk, which sometimes is more expensive up front, but over time it's actually cheaper because they do give you discounts for buying larger things. Like for example, I was at, I think, Barron's the other day, and I bought a 5-pound bag of Brussels sprouts for like $4. Like, that's crazy.
Wow.
So sometimes we want to, obviously keep the grocery bill low, but sometimes buying those bulk things is going to be better for us overall financially. So buying vegetables in bulk, freezing them so that you have them for later, or even resorting to frozen vegetables. I know there's misconceptions about that. Like, I personally was like, no, I only eat fresh vegetables, but now, like, really, frozen is kind of where it's at. So buying frozen vegetables, there's a plethora of options, a plethora of different price ranges for that, depending on your budget. So we went with protein, we went with vegetables. What about carbs? Like, what carbs would you recommend that are fairly inexpensive that get the job done?
Right, so carbs are kind of a filler food too, right? Especially if you have a big family, you want to have all those extra carbs because it makes them your kids feel more satisfied, and your husband, whatever. So we want, carbs get a bad rap, but there's different kinds of carbs out there. There's smart carbs, and then there's processed carbs. So we want to focus on smart carbs, and smart carbs are fruits and vegetables and whole grains. Those are all carbs, okay? So let's kind of hone in on the grains, because that's when people think of carbs, that's what they think of. So we want to focus on intact whole grains as much as possible. And let me give you an example, because I know those words maybe don't mean so much to you. Oatmeal would be a good example. There's all kinds of different oatmeals. There's instant oatmeal, there's rolled oats, and then there's the steel cut oats. So you've got all kinds of different oats. So the instant oats are heavily processed, and they really are not really such a great source of fiber and nutrients. The more processed a food is, typically the less nutrient density and fiber it has. So I wouldn't suggest the processed. Rolled oats are fine, but optimally you want to get that intact steel cut, rolled oat. And because we are not rolled, but intact whole grain oat. So again, because we have more time right now to be in the kitchen, this is a really, really simple way to cook this. You can set the crock pot on low. You add 4 cups of water and 1 cup of those steel cut oats with a pinch of either like maybe a little bit of yogurt, because that will kind of help break down those fibers, and let it sit overnight. A little pinch of salt and a little pinch of yogurt. Let it sit overnight on low, and in the morning when you guys all wake up, you've got this delicious, ready to go oatmeal. It's all broken down and delicious. And so it's cheaper that way, and it's gonna feed your family, and it's ready when you wake up.
Which is always nice. So what about like carbs for like dinner or lunch? Which carbs would you recommend that are fairly inexpensive but also healthy?
Okay, what about things like sweet potatoes, carrots? All of those have a very long shelf life, and they're nutrient dense. Brown rice, white rice, I know people enjoy white rice. I was just talking to a woman this morning who, she's like, my family will not touch brown rice. And I said, okay, well, let's work with that. Let's take the white rice and let's cook it in a bone broth to up the nutrition in that rice, and maybe add some fresh herbs to it. So you're taking something that's maybe more processed and making it into something that's much more nutritious. So, you have to I know you have to work with your families. Everybody's home, everybody's hungry. I know as a mom, I have 4 kids. I remember I don't want to have to make 3 different meals. So we got to kind of work with the family dynamics and find things that work for everybody.
So we have sweet potatoes, we have potatoes, we have rice of some sort. And then what is your take on pasta?
Pasta can be a very nutrient-dense food. I use brown rice and quinoa pasta from Trader Joe's because I'm gluten-free, so is Jen. So that's a really good option for those of you that have to be gluten-free. But a whole wheat or a white pasta is actually quite fine. And again, this is the thing. We talked about PFC, protein, fat, and carbohydrates. So you've got your carbohydrates in your pasta. You want to add some good fat, maybe some nice olive oil, and then you want to add the protein, whether it's shrimp or chicken or your scraps of your roast, whatever. You want to throw all of that together and balance it. Protein, fat, and carbohydrates all together. So yeah, pasta gets a bad rap, but it actually can be very nutritious and delicious. We eat pasta at least once a week in my house.
So with that being said, and this isn't really like specific to any type of meal, but like getting an idea of like buying in bulk is helpful for making it inexpensive. Finding multi-uses to use for each specific thing. So whether you're, eating part of a fruit but you don't use the rest of it, like you could perhaps juice it. That way you're not wasting, right? Things like that. And then the carbs. So stay away from the processed stuff. So things like macaroni and cheese, things like rice-a-roni, all that is actually more expensive than buying a potato or buying, I don't know, a big thing of brown rice. It's actually more expensive. And I think we don't pay attention to that. And I think paying attention to sometimes buying in bulk a little bit more expensive up front is going to be better for us long-term financially versus buying them individually. What else do you got?
Well, something that's come out of this whole quarantine time, I heard this guy speak, Joel Salatin is his name. He's a farmer on the East Coast, and he talks about the importance of having a 3-month supply in your larder. And I love that because I feel like we're so, and I'm guilty of it too, where I'm running to the store 3 times a week. This is ridiculous. Like having a plan and having, a stash of food in your refrigerator, in your pantry, in your freezer, it's really a great idea. And just sitting down and maybe, I feel like I've been doing a lot more meal planning than I've ever done before because I don't want to be running to the store. So I think that being thoughtful about what we're putting in our bodies, having a plan, like Jen said, buying in bulk can be really helpful. And yes, it is more expensive on the front end, but it's way cheaper on the back end. So, just putting some of these strategies into use can be really helpful through this whole process.
And Stephanie, cheese is good. You just have to buy cheaper cheese, I guess. So she loves cheese.
I love cheese too.
I do too. So I think that was a big question, or not a question, a point she made is planning. I think a lot of us too, we don't plan, and so then we're running to the grocery store multiple times and we're just grabbing things without really planning out for the week. I know I do that. Well, I used to do that. I used to not plan ever, so I was at the grocery store all the time. But planning your week out so that you know exactly what you need, how much you need, and then that way you can kind of spread out the things as well. So that's another really good point that I didn't think about.
Yeah.
Having
a plan.
Maybe we should share each other's plans on here. Maybe on like whatever day your planning day is, be like, this is what I'm eating for dinner, lunch, dinner for the week, and then we'll do ours. Maybe.
I am doing a roast tonight. I took a roast out of my freezer. I'm going to make a roast when I go home this afternoon and just let it sit for a couple of hours in either slow on the oven or in the crock pot. I haven't decided that. And, just serving that with probably one of those carbs like a sweet potato or mashed potatoes. And, potatoes get a bad rap too, but you know what? Potatoes are really rich in vitamin C and fiber and potassium. And they can definitely be part of a balanced meal, for sure.
Okay, so any other specific things that you want to talk about?
I think we covered a lot of it. Buying generic is also a good idea.
That's a good one. I think, okay, so here's I don't want to call myself a snob, but sometimes I'm like, that is not the name brand. I don't want it. But really, there's no big difference. Like, it's really silly. You're buying a name. You're not really buying much of a different product. So that's another small way to save money is don't buy the name brand. Who cares, right? Who cares?
Yes. I also wanted to mention, maybe this is kind of off what we were just talking about, but there's a company called Imperfect Produce, and they deliver fruit and vegetable boxes to your door. And it's imperfect because, when you go to the store and everything just looks like, every tomato looks identical and everything's so perfect. So these are the ones that maybe don't look so beautiful, but they're just as nutritious. This is a company that sells produce much cheaper. They have organic or they have conventional. You can buy either one, but it's just a good way to get good produce at a significant discount. So that's something you could look into if you like the idea of having it delivered to your door.
What was the name of it?
Imperfect Produce.
Okay, so we got 2 things for you today. We have all the information we gave you, but we give you Imperfect Produce, which is a great way to get vegetables cheaper. And then what was the name of the book?
Well, Leanne Brown is the website, and her book is, I think it's called Cooking for under $4 a day or something like that. It'll pop up and it's a free download. She's just what a beautiful person that will do this for free. You know, just she really wants to help people that need help with their diets.
We should get you to write a book just like that.
Yeah.
We're
Well,
gonna.
she's already done it, so.
We can do it too. Anyway, so we want to come on here, do a little Q&A. If you have any specific questions other than what we've talked about, put a comment below. If there's any information that you want to know, whether it's about nutrition or fitness or mental, like stress release, let us know. We would love to help you through these crazy, crazy times. And we're just sitting here anyways, right?
Yep. And you know, Jen does online training right now, so if that's something you guys are interested in, since you can't really get to a gym, we do provide that. I do nutrition consults over the phone right now, so we're still very busy.
We are.
Yeah.
We have the online personal training, which is in, or online classes. I'm hosting classes Monday through Friday, which is in the private group. So if you're interested in joining, again, comment below. We're doing these dietitian consults on the phone, obviously. We have IV hydration with vitamin C to keep you nice and healthy. We have plenty of supplements that we're offering, vitamin C, vitamin D, Phyto Multi. We literally have everything you could possibly need to stay healthy during these times. Plus, we're really fun.
Yes, we are.
We're fun. So that's it for today. Those are your questions. Well, nobody asked questions. We just gave you answers. But anyways, again, if you have any other information that you want to learn, let us know. Otherwise, we'll be back next week in the private group. So if you want to join that, let us know again. And we'll see you guys soon. Stay healthy. Stay safe.
Yep, stay safe.
Adios.